Welcome to an overview of the American Indian Native American Instructional Continuity document. My name is Julie Goldman, and I am the Director of Equity Curriculum and Instruction in the Equity Department at the San Diego County Office of Education. In our time today, we will be exploring distance learning instructional continuity document for Native American students. We will review the document sections and discuss current considerations to address students' needs as blended learning or online learning continues to evolve. The purpose of this document is to support schools and districts during blended learning to address the needs of the 35,000 American Indian and Native American students in our K-12 California schools. Many of our American Indian students are part of the 109 California tribes, including several tribes that cross state and national boundaries. Our goal is to share how you can use the instructional continuity document to improve educational outcomes in distance and hybrid learning contexts, to address the instructional needs of American Indian Native American students, and to align this work to the SDCOE Instructional Continuity Learning Plan template, as well as the Equity Resource Summary. To do this, we will address the following areas: communication, social emotional supports, instruction, and resources. The first section of the document is the communication section. This section includes questions for LEAs to consider as they continue to create high-quality blended learning contexts for students. Since our school closures came unannounced and truly forced schools to close from one day to the next, this made the transition to online learning challenging for many schools. Communication has been key to our success during this time. Connecting with families to communicate plans for students has been difficult at times. This section includes questions that have provided LEAs with a guide to reflect on current practices and have challenged LEAs to think about existing structures and entry points for communication with Native American families. Throughout the state, LEAs report low levels of engagement currently with our American Indian Native American communities and families. Culturally responsive communication is an effective way to strengthen our homeschool connection. Several districts have reported finding new ways to communicate with families, including leveraging in more depth with our tribal education leaders and really collaborating on an ongoing basis. School family partnerships need to be a focus of our communication initiatives. Data gathering efforts such as the survey assessing the impact of COVID-19 on California American Indian tribal communities, as you see here on the screen under resources. This document provides more information to support our communities. And communication is really about listening to our communities. For example, in a recent discussion with American Indian communities, the educators and families had a clear ask. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance in schools or hold a district-wide meeting, they asked to also include a land acknowledgement to respect and appreciate our American Indian communities. Additionally, these guiding questions have been designed to prompt LEAs to think about data collection and next steps. Why is an intentional and continuous focus on communication important? What can we learn from our students, families, and communities? How might this information help inform our support systems? It is important to have multiple entry points for our American Indian Native American communities. So how are we providing these services, and how is this information being communicated to families? It is critical to send written communication home. Likewise, it's important to look at our systemic communication practices. For example, how are we intentionally connecting with our Native American families to gather information that can help us be responsive to their community needs? Social emotional learning has been on the minds of educators for some time now. However, the pandemic has made social emotional learning even more important as students struggle to cope during these uncertain times. This section was designed to guide LEAs to assess their current social emotional learning delivery practices and also consider how they might adapt those services in a blended learning model. This section also includes resources that could support educators with understanding the mental health impact on American Indian and Native American communities, as well as information on trauma informed practices. The mental health needs of this student group must be a focus of our collective healing. As a system, we recognize that COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted our Native American communities. The American Indian Native American communities have been and continue to be exposed to this virus. So, in thinking about our current reality of our systems, schools, and classrooms, what do we understand or know about our students? How are current systems of support responsive to the needs of students and staff? And how can we leverage social emotional learning to support academic learning? It's important to recognize that emotional learning is academic learning. Social emotional learning prepares our brains for optimal learning. When we prioritize relationship building and social emotional development, we create the optimal conditions for meaningful learning. Expanding the equity lens includes links to several resources that provide educators with information and strategies to implement culturally responsive teaching and learning. For example, current research is highlighted, and there are also links to videos and webinars that can support educators to create more equitable and culturally responsive learning environments for students. With regard to culturally responsive teaching, it is important to consider incorporating the native ways of knowing and place based learning into our instructional plans. It is also important to consider communication, classroom routines, and structures, and provide multiple entry points to learn about the experiences, backgrounds, and cultures of our students. As you will note on this slide at the top, um, under expanding inclusive curriculum, we have the California Indian Education for All link. And this is a recent resource that includes professional development and curriculum um, through an equity lens. So, our guiding questions to expand our equity lens include how might we support teachers and staff with the delivery of culturally responsive teaching and learning? What do we need to consider in order to ensure our system is culturally proficient and meets the needs of our students? As we reflect on these guiding questions, we recognize the need for high quality, equity focused professional learning on culturally responsive teaching, the need to leverage existing structures such as professional learning communities to support culturally responsive teaching, the need to support uh, teachers to intentionally plan lessons and collaborate on the needs of American Indian, Native American students, and to ensure that every student is able to master essential learning. As practitioners, we must consider what we know, what we need to learn, and what we need to address in our own practice in order to best serve our students and their families. As we know, this pandemic has emphasized the inequities and gaps that exist in our educational system. This section includes links for teachers and educators to access materials and curriculum designed with the American Indian Native American experience in mind. As we create learning opportunities for students, it is important to consider how students see themselves in the curriculum. These links provide that bridge for teachers as they plan and continue to develop units of study. Through both blended learning contacts and live contacts, in both cases, we need to focus on instructional practices that leverage collaboration, support social emotional learning, and increase engagement. The materials can be used as is or serve as a resource. And our guiding questions include: how have we adapted content via blended learning? And how is the content reflective of our students' experiences, backgrounds, and cultures? This section focuses on supporting LEAs to consider and plan how they would assess the digital connectedness of their American Indian Native American communities. The transition to blended learning has been a challenging one for all of us. Ensuring that every student has access to the curriculum is essential to meet the needs of communities we serve. To do this effectively, LEAs need to have an understanding of the digital demands and needs of their students. We need to consider the specific adaptations we need to make for students who do not have digital connections. Every student deserves to have equitable access to learning, regardless of their technology connection. And our guiding questions include: how are we ensuring that students have equitable access to the curriculum, meaning with technology or without technology? And how might we ensure that curriculum is transferable in a blended learning environment? And here we have a few additional resources. Again, we want to highlight the California American uh, Indian American Indian Education for All website, as well as the resources on SDCOE's Equity Department and SDCOE's Multilingual Education and Global Achievement Department. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all you do to support our American Indian and Native American students and communities.